Good evening, everyone. Thank you. Welcome to the 2019 annual gathering of the Intercommunity Justice and Peace Center, Resilience, Planting Seeds and Growing Movements. My name is Shannon Hughes, and I spend my days here at Xavier serving as the Senior Assistant Director of the Dorothy Day Center for Faith and Justice. I am also fortunate for the past 4 years to have served as a board leader for IJPC. Yes, IJPC. It is so exciting to be here with all of you tonight, ready to nourish seeds in ourselves and grow movements in the community around us. I have to thank our event sponsors for their help making tonight possible. At the Peace Builder level, the Sisters of Mercy and Sisters of the Precious Blood. The Peace Supporters, the Dorothy Day Center for Faith and Justice at Xavier University, and Glen Mary Home Missioners. And, thank you. Peace Promoters, Bellarmine Chapel, Paul Bergman Fident Wealth Advisors, Ameriprise, Congregation of St. Joseph, Immaculate Heart of Mary Social Action Coordinating Committee, Indivisible Rapid Response Team, McKinney and NAMI, Sisters of Charity, and the Ursulines of Cincinnati. Thank you, sponsors. Many other individuals and groups are listed on the back of your program book, so if you know someone there, share our thanks. We are most grateful for your generosity. Tonight's agenda includes IJPC highlights over the past year, award presentations to 2 local peacemakers, and our keynote speaker, Winona LaDuke. Just a quick reminder that there is water provided at the back of the room and restrooms just outside this entrance and down the hall to the right. At this time, I'd like to invite members of the Greater Cincinnati Native American Coalition to come forward and help open our gathering.
You just did. This is Joe. I kidnapped him from Pittsburgh. He's trying to make his way back home. Ready? That song was gifted to the American Indian movement back in the 70s. And it's a song that represents resistance for many indigenous people, many indigenous nations, and other resistance movements. I'd like to start off first by recognizing those indigenous peoples that were here before us, whose who were affected the most by the doctrines of discovery and by broken treaties, the Shawnee and Miami and Seneca people, and on whose land the city of Cincinnati and this university is built. I represent the Greater Cincinnati Native American Coalition in Cincinnati. My name is Gerry Neri. And, you know, I got a funny history with my name. My name Gerry came from a bottle of shampoo that I saw when I was washing my hair when I was a teenager. And I thought, that's a pretty cool name. I'm going to use that. Then my name Neri, it comes from a mission in Albuquerque. It's the school that my father, he took the name of the school when he joined the military. And his father also took the name of another mission, and that became his name. So these aren't really my name. That's not my name. And as indigenous people, I could talk to you about the origins of my name. But first, I'd have to explain to you our relationship with the land. I'd have to explain to you what that relationship means. I'd have to explain to you our relationship with the water. And I'd have to explain to you what our relationship, what that means. And with the 4 sacred mountains that exist on our homeland. Many people ask, what is the connection between activism, between human rights, between the environment, and Native American issues? Because this is where we're from. This is our land. This is the land that we've had for millennia, that our ancestors gave birth to their descendants on this land. And that's why it's so important to us. In 2014, a young woman named Christina Brown, she gathered some indigenous leaders and individuals and organizations, and she posed a question to all of us. She asked, what does a post-Columbus Indigenous Day look like for Cincinnati? By 2016, we had come together as a loosely based organization, coalition, and we had written a resolution to present to City Council. 2 weeks before the resolution came up to vote, we heeded the call from the youth of Standing Rock that asked us to go and join them and support them. 1 week before the resolution was voted on, private security mercenaries released dogs on women and children and elders who were trying to protect a sacred site that they had bulldozed over. We came back with enough time. We came back the day before the vote was held in the city of Cincinnati. Yvette Simpson felt like we had enough votes to pass the resolution. We felt like Cincinnati was ready for this. But one of the council members, he abstained from voting, and so it failed. We went back to Standing Rock. We went back about another dozen times, back and forth. We left people there. We brought people back. And then, after the camps had been raided, we come back. We had all this equipment and all this water. So we went to Flint, Michigan. We organized there. We helped distribute water. And then we went to D.C., where we marched with our relatives from Standing Rock. and from all over the country. Then we come back here, and a gentleman froze to death on a bus stop out here in Cincinnati. So we took the equipment that we had in Standing Rock, and we took the vehicle that we had taken to Standing Rock, and we went out in the streets, and we distributed all the cold weather gear that we had left over from Standing Rock, and gloves and socks and coats. We made up chili and coffee. And for 3 weeks in the coldest part of that year, while other organizations were patting themselves on the back, we stayed out in the streets with those people. And we found that there were Native people, indigenous people, who were also homeless coming out here. They come out here because of jobs or because of schools, and for whatever reason, they fell on hard times and they weren't able to make it back home. So we decided 3 years afterwards, we're going to try and pass this resolution one more time. And at this time, City Council voted to abolish Columbus Day and to create Indigenous Peoples Day. That's when we went from being a loosely based coalition to a official loosely based coalition. You know, we were planning on going to DC again to go to Indigenous Peoples Day March, and I got ill. I ended up in the hospital because of my heart. And so I didn't go. And our relative was in D.C., though. And when I got out of the hospital, I started getting all these phone calls. And apparently, Covington Catholic was in Washington, D.C. with our relative. So again, we got stuck in the middle of a controversy. Because of this, and because of schools in the area, there's 49 schools within the Cincinnati area that have Native American mascots. So we thought about how this had been approached in the past. We thought about what people have done and why it hadn't worked. And we decided that we were going to go ahead and make our focus on education. Educating the educators and creating the curriculum. So that's just a little bit what Greater Cincinnati Native American Coalition does, and we are honored to be here tonight and to be able to speak with all of you. Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Gerry and Joe, for that very powerful opening and for sharing about the work of the Greater Cincinnati Native American Coalition. Good evening, everyone. My name is Allison Reynolds-Berry, and I am the Executive Director of the Intercommunity Justice and Peace Center. I'd like to echo Shannon's sentiments and welcome you here. It's wonderful to look out at such a full space. And a special welcome to anybody who is here tonight with IJPC for the first time at an IJPC event. Tonight at our annual gathering, we reflect back on our last fiscal year, July 2018 to June 2019, and the many ways that IJPC worked to create a narrative for the future that differs from the harsh realities that we face each day. Please check out this video highlights from the last year that was put together by Sam Flesh, who is a student here at Xavier. In just a minute.
Peace Center educates and advocates for peace and challenges unjust local, national, and global systems and promotes the creation of a nonviolent society. IJPC stands as a pillar of social justice activism in the Cincinnati area. It's been a resource of learning, speaking out, and standing up for the most vulnerable in our society. And it does this by focusing on 4 main areas: ending the death penalty, educating about human trafficking, advocating for immigrant rights, and promoting peace and nonviolence. It was founded in 1985 by 5 communities of religious women, and IJPC since then, in these 34 years, has brought people together to gather and hope.
There's an indigenous saying that goes something like, they tried to bury us, but they didn't know we were seeds. And I think that speaks to the work of IJPC.
He ended by saying, "But I've still not gotten a new trial. I'm trying to remain hopeful, but it's hard. It's hard because no one is hearing my voice, and that's why I'm writing you. Because I think that if you choose to speak out on my behalf, your voice might be heard. I hope you'll read the materials that I've enclosed about my case. There is more information on my website." Tyrone has had a real impact on my personal life because I've introduced his case to my own family, to my son, my daughter, and my grandkids. I have 4 grandkids, and they know about his case. They've watched his video on my computer at home. They've signed cards to him. He's had a huge impact on my life, and I, in turn, hopefully have impacted people in my church, in my congregation, as well as my own personal family.
One of the greatest things that has come out of the committee this year, and something that I've been working on with the committee, is our toolkit, our media toolkit. And this toolkit is a really great way of giving those clear-cut guidelines around how to talk about human trafficking if you're doing a news report, or if you're interviewing somebody, or doing a presentation. So it gives those guidelines of things to say and things not to say, things that will, trigger folks who might have had experience with trafficking or other forms of abuse, connected forms of abuse like domestic violence or intimate partner violence, sexual assault, that kind of thing. And ultimately making the language and the discussion of the topic of human trafficking inclusive. I think our work is at the foundation of any movement. You have to educate people, you have to make people aware that issues like this even exist in the first place, because it is often kept under wraps, it's often kept private and hidden away from public view.
I think the seed, there's been many seeds, but one of them has been creating the question of what is happening in our immigration system, and is it correct? I think that's the biggest question that I wanted to plant as a seed for the community to question, to research and investigate, but also to get educated. Storytelling is a big component of any activism work that you do. And through my story, I've been able to expose different factors and different possibilities of why people immigrate. And I think it shows proof that many other people can also share their story, but it also shows that people can learn from that story, and that helps them kind of get involved with the movement.
Rethinking Racism is a program that aims to foster a greater sense of community within Cincinnati by offering programming that invites community members to come in and discuss a specific topic, usually regarding racism and other forms of inequality. One seed I planted was during a layperson sermon that I delivered to my congregation over the summer. And I remember one of our Rethinking Racism open spaces and a discussion I led on roadblocks to compassion. So that was the topic of my sermon, and I had the notes from the Rethinking Racism discussion, so that kind of helped me plug in some of the information and kind of directly transfer some of the perspectives that I was able to benefit from during the discussion and tie that into how we can all build our capacity for compassion.
The times that our people, our work has been pushed down by those in power, it has given us even more resolve to push forward. It's that resilience that helps us know that we're in this for the long haul and that IJPC will be and continue to be a mainstay in the Cincinnati fabric for social justice.
IJPC has worked to help others plant the seeds that grow social movements. And we want to thank everybody who has contributed to any of those social movements, anybody that works for equity, that works from transitioning power to be from the bottom up, and anybody that just works for the dignity of every human being.
There are many more faces that make up the work of IJPC, more than we were able to see in the video. And so I would like to invite anyone here who is part of an IJPC committee, has attended a program, an educational event with us in the last year, to please stand. You all are the folks that make up IJPC. You are part of the many voices that come together when we call for the need for systemic change, and also the times when we look within ourselves at the individual change and individual work that we need to do to create a nonviolent society. So thank you for joining with us. And if you didn't see your face up here or didn't have the opportunity to stand, please get involved with IJPC. There are lots of ways you can do that by attending an event, getting involved with our board, either on the board or on one of the board committees. If you are interested in any of those things, please feel free to stop by and talk to myself or any of the staff or anybody in an IJPC t-shirt. At this time, I'd like to transition to the awards section of our program and invite all of the IJPC staff up onto the stage. So to introduce folks, this is Jessie Frank, who's the program manager for the death penalty and peace and nonviolence. Samantha Searles is the program manager for human trafficking and immigration. Chloe is our Mercy Volunteer Corps intern, program assistant for the year. Haley Hughey is our operations manager, and Sandra Ramirez is the immigration program organizer. Tonight's first award is the IJPC Margaret Fuller Peace Award. The IJPC Margaret Fuller Peace Award recipients are distinguished by having made, over a period of years, a significant contribution to the promotion of peace founded in justice, dedication, compassion, and love through their work at IJPC. And I'd like to invite Marianne Bressler to the stage as this year's recipient of the award. Over the years, Marianne has been a dedicated member of the dialogue program as a facilitator, has been part of the Rethinking Racism Committee, the Nonviolence Alliance of Greater Cincinnati, and the Way of the Cross for Justice. She's someone who is willing to do the non-glamorous work that often comes with being part of committees, like taking notes, and also as a dedicated learner, will attend as many educational events as she can and knows about the individual work that's needed to create systemic change. So Marianne, thank you. And congratulations. Can we take a quick picture and then have you say, can we take a picture up first, real quick? Sorry. It's like the Oscars.
Thank you. Okay, I promised Allison I would speak for 2 minutes or less, so I wrote it down because I knew rational thought would be gone when I walked up here. And I was right. When Haley emailed me and asked if I would be willing to receive this award, I was flabbergasted. I know who has received this award before, and And I know the saint who is being honored alongside of me this evening, and frankly, I was a little stunned that I was asked. And I thought about it a lot. Why are they giving me this award? And what I think I decided was that it comes down to presence, and that I'm not leading the charge for anything, but I will show up. And I try to be present in places where presence matters. And I thought about this because as a white, cisgender, middle class, documented citizen of this country with typical abilities, I've come to realize that it is in fact very easy for someone like me to walk away from suffering and oppression of my brothers and sisters. Especially as a white person, my vast privilege allows me to claim fatigue or stress or frustration or hopelessness, to claim that I'm not being fed or fulfilled, or that what I do isn't making a difference, and just walk away, even when the oppression actually directly impacts me, because I can always find a more comfortable place pretty easily. White people usually can do that. But I've come to realize that personally, I can't be comfortable in those homogenized, safe, and fundamentally unjust places. I can't be comfortable with the status quo because people like Monica McGloin and a great cloud of witnesses remind me that if everyone can't feel comfortable, no one should. I want to stand where marginalized people can raise their voices until those voices are everywhere. And I see this honor tonight as more of an aspiration than a commendation on a job well done. And I thank IJPC for allowing me that opportunity.
The next award we will present is the IJPC Bob Maxwell Peace Builder Award. And I'd like to invite Bonnie Newmeyer and Sister Janet Lintz to the stage. The IJPC Bob Maxwell Peace Builder Award recipients are distinguished by having made a significant contribution to the promotion of peace in Greater Cincinnati, including educating, advocating, and engaging others for peace. They're willing to speak out against injustice with words and actions while holding the belief that peace is possible. It's an award that asks for nominations from the community, and this year's recipient received 5 nominations. Unfortunately, Sister Monica McGloin passed away earlier this month on October 2nd after a battle with cancer. She did know of the award and was humbled to receive it. And Bonnie Newmeyer was one of the people who helped nominate Sister Monica, and I'd like to invite her to share why at this time.
Good evening. It is difficult to summarize all we loved about and learned from Sister Monica McGloin. Many here tonight worked and walked with her over the years, as I did. She so much wanted to live to experience this night with you. Sister Monica's life exemplified peace through justice making. As long as I knew her, she was about bringing people together across difference to work for a more just and peaceful world. Her vocation as a nurse taught about healing, not only physical, but also spiritual. I first met her through the work of the Dominican Sisters of the Sick Poor. On home visits to the elderly in West End and over the Rhine, Monica always listened with her heart. Monica was often asked to speak at public rallies and events and did not mince her words when speaking out on health care, workers' rights, affordable housing, against war. She challenged racism when she saw it and was always supportive of those trying to make a way out of no way. Monica was a forward thinker. She challenged herself and others to think outside of the box. She knew we need a paradigm shift. We can't keep operating in systems that perpetuate problems. She was always thinking about something new. When she found a good, challenging article, she would send it out to her contacts and friends. Monica was welcoming and had a special gift for hospitality. She pulled people together around her table and called us to share stories. It always felt like a beautiful ritual of belonging and thanksgiving. She inspired many of us to keep on keeping on despite the obstacles. Monica's dog companions over the years, Mystery, Madison, and Stella, say something about Monica's love for all creatures. Her love was all-inclusive, expansive, and she modeled how to be faithful not only to people, but to all creatures of the earth. Monica was a mentor. I know I have counted on her wisdom over the years, and I know many other people have too. She stopped and took time for conversations. Relationship building was important to Monica. She cast her net wide. She was so good about making connections. Our world is more peaceful and just because Monica's heart, hands, and labor lived out these precious values every day of her life. We are all blessed to have had her in our world.
Sister Janet Lentz was a dear friend of Sister Monica's and housemate for almost 24 years, more than 24 years, mostly in Over the Rhine and recently in Bond Hill. And Sister Janet, as a tribute to Monica's legacy, we are planning to plant an oak tree in her memory in the play space of Peasley in the backyard. And along with it, we'll we will place this plaque near the tree that says, "Rooted in justice forever in our hearts." And we would like to give you this tonight. And now I'd like to welcome Gerry again to help introduce our keynote speaker.
My elder and mentor had told me once, he said, you know, you're so busy trying to get a seat at the table, but what are you going to say when you have that seat? What are you going to talk about? So you always need to be prepared and know what you're talking about whenever you're given the opportunity. Reverend Barber recently was here in town, and when I was listening to him speak, I was tremendously inspired by his words, but he also spoke about we have to do more than wake up in the morning. We have to do more than show up. We have to get out of bed. And that every generation has their time, and this is our time. This is our time to rise up. And that's inspirational. It's tremendously inspirational. But you have to be able to not only get along in your community, but your community needs to get along with all the other communities. You're not just isolated in that bubble. And that takes a great deal of relationship building. The woman I'm about to introduce has done so much, not only for Native people, but to all the communities outside of there that she supports, that intersectionality, that recognition. I was raised by aunties and my mother and my grandmother. There was no men at the time in my family, and I'm very, very proud and honored to introduce my friend and mentor, Winona LaDuke.
Hi there. What a glorious evening. What an honor to be here with you and the honorees tonight. Women of great courage. I always like that. So, ani nindawe maganatuk, that means hello, my relatives. Benesi kwe indigenicas, makwendo dam, gababani kag, ishkaniganing and dunjaba. Miigwech, thank you for being here tonight and inviting me. My name's Benesi Kwe. I'm from the White Earth Reservation in northern Minnesota. Y'all know where Minnesota is? Very good. I'm kind of between Bemidji and Fargo. And I'm an indigenous person in that territory, but I also want to acknowledge the people from down here, and especially my friends in the community that came out, the Native community here. Really appreciate that. Long time ago in Wayne, we had a lot of relatives, the Shawnee relatives that lived down in this area. So you know, it is a great moment that we have in this time, in this today. I have the thing in my pocket to turn on the PowerPoint, don't I? Just realized that I was in charge. Oh, there. See, I didn't even touch it, huh? Look at that. I'm going to tell you a little bit about our struggle because it is really the same, you know, for all of us. But I'm a water protector. That's what I am. I'm a water protector. And I think it's a good thing to be in this day and age, to be a water protector, because that'd be something we want to take care of. But a woman is also a water protector, and she's she's now a mural in downtown Duluth, and this is the community that I come from. But you know, Duluth is kind of a rough city on the lake for Native people. A lot of us have been invisible. A lot of us, I had people from my village murdered there, women, and a lot of indigenous women go missing there. A lot of boats that go in and out of there, a lot of sex trafficking, you know, all of those things, you know. And Native women, by and large, in our neck of the woods, a lot of times we're invisible. You know, we're invisible or we're looked over. But this woman is not. She is 20 feet wide and 40 feet tall. And she's in downtown Duluth on 2nd Street and 2nd Avenue at the American Indian Community Health Organization. And the artist is named Votan. She's a water protector, and I'm really proud that our organization, Honor the Earth, was part of bringing, you know, we are all here to we want the world to be beautiful. We want to bring beauty and joy to our world. And so I was really proud of being part of that art in the work there. This is some art from my community as well. This is art by this artist named Roy Thomas. He's passed on, but I always like to show this art because I was an undergraduate at Harvard University, and if you wanted to study the art from Europe, you went to the Fine Arts program. If you wanted to study indigenous art, you went to anthropology. And so I just want to kind of point out a valuation of knowledge that exists, and to say that, you know, in the picture in the world that we live, that perhaps the solution to the problems we face today is not found in the paradigm which created them. We will need to have big hearts and good minds and good prayers to change the situations around us, and many of the people in this room certainly have that. This art, you know, is different than in the art of Europe. You can see inside the beings. It's kind of called this X-ray vision. And a lot of the times in this art, you have spirit lines which connect those beings to their other world and to the other beings, because we are all related, whether we have wings or fins or roots or paws. We are relatives. We are relatives. And this piece is called "We Are All in the Same Boat," which I think is pretty much true. You know, no matter where we come from, we're in the same boat. And this is one of those boats. This is wild rice. I come from a place where for 10,000 years we've harvested on the same lake. That's what a sustainable economy looks like. And that is wild rice. That is, I think that this is in the middle of the Tamarack Refuge. That's the Thompsons harvesting there. So I come from a place, Someone was asking me about being on Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman, and Amy, Amy and I known each other a long time. She said, "Tell me where you live, Winona. What's it like there?" And I said, "Amy, I live where the wild things are." And it's true, because where I live, there are bears, and there are wolves, and there are coyotes, and there are fox, and there are swans in these great numbers, and there are butterflies, and there are frogs. I live in that place, and I'd like to keep it that way. I'd like to keep it that way, that magical place where the wild things are, northern Minnesota. And that is also where the wild rice grows, on our lakes and rivers. And all you got to do is take care of your lake, and you can have wild rice every year. So to me, a lot of this moment in time is about how we reaffirm our covenant with the Creator, how we make things right, how we do the thing that is right morally. We find all the courage and everything that is within ourselves to come and do the right thing. In our prophecies, this time is called the time of the seventh fire. And it said that we as Anishinaabe people, we would come to this point in time where we would have a choice between two paths. And they said that one path was well-worn, but it was scorched. And the other path is not well-worn, and it would be green. And it would be our choice upon which path to embark. And I'm pretty sure that that's where we all are at this moment in time. I live, I don't live in a place where I can hide from Mother Earth or Mother Nature very well. I live out there. And, I can't go from my air-conditioned car to my air-conditioned house to my air-conditioned office. We live out there, and we see what is happening, and we know that this is the time to do the right thing. And so, the right thing is a complex story. I'm going to tell you some facets of it, but, as I was listening and thinking about this moment, I remember a long time ago, I was about 18 years old, and I was asked to go speak at an Exxon shareholders meeting. And I went there, and a lot of you from the church community know about shareholders resolutions. And I went there because the Exxon had procured a 400,000 acre lease to land on the Navajo reservation for uranium exploration. And that lease was issued by James Watt. Do you remember him? Oh, listen to that. Yes, we do remember him. Yeah, he was like horrible. He was like the pre-Trump thing, right? That same thing, man. But he was like busy issuing, so the lease was in violation of all federal law. It was far more expansive than could have been allowed. And at that time, there was 380 uranium leases on tribal land on public land, because uranium's a dangerous thing, as we all know. And so they had this 400,000 acre lease, and they were about to lay to waste with exploration permits this community, Dalton Pass and Crown Point. And I was a young student, but I was working for them. And so I was a researcher. I'm kind of a little nerdy research girl on uranium mining, and I was down there working for them. I said, "Winona, you should go to that meeting for us." I was like, "Okay." So I go to the Chicago Opera House, and there they have that Exxon meeting, and I'd never been a place like that. I'd never seen men in, there was fur coats and feather boas. I thought feather boas were only worn by transvestites. I didn't realize they were worn by shareholders of the Exxon, as well. And there was like a bunch of guys down there on stage, and they all had, they were like the white guys, and there's Exxon over them. I guess that was the board of directors, right? The CEO of Exxon. And I went in there, and the first group that was up there was these anti-nuclear guys, and they all wanted Exxon to divest of their nuclear holdings. And those shareholders just kind of looked down. They just kind of looked down, and they didn't really care about them. And then the next ones who stood up were the nuns. Oh yeah. The nuns, when the nuns roll into action, that's scary, huh? You all know that, right? So the nuns came in, and they wanted Exxon to divest of their South African interests, because apartheid was going on, and that was legalized slavery. And you could see this look of shame in the shareholders when the nuns came. They were like, "Ooh, he's in trouble now." I was like, "Yeah, you are in trouble, guys." And then I stood up and I talked about the shares in Navajo. And they all looked at me like I was from outer space. So then, because they had no idea where the Navajo reservation was, or no idea of what was going on. And of course, that's like the story of American corporate accountability or not. Pretty much no idea. Doing all kinds of stuff to people, without seeing their faces, So I sat down, and they're all, marking their proxies. Y'all know what I'm talking about? Or marking their votes, voting against us or whatever. And then from the back of the room came this guy. He came up and he was a priest. He came up to the front, he got that microphone, and he said, I don't have a resolution. He says, I have a question. He says, I've been working in Latin America for the past 10 years, and the people there have a question to ask you. He said, they want to know if there's a direct relationship between their poverty and your wealth. That's all that guy said, Father Roy Bourgeois. Oh yeah, y'all know him, huh? Yeah, I was like, first and only time I met that man. Left a lasting impression on me. But that's it, isn't it? Poverty and wealth, and how some get rich and some get poor, and all the violations that go along with that. So in the moment that we are in, we see that is, across the board. I call it Wendigo economics, or the economics of accountable. I'm an economist by training. I spend my time doing rural community development. But I'm interested in, well-being as wealth. That's what I'm interested in, not the value of your dollar or how much stuff you got. I'm interested in how we come to live in peace with each other, which involves a whole bunch of choices, like not consuming a third of the world's resources. That'd be a good start. It causes a lot of conflict in our own North America and elsewhere. And so that's this opportunity in the time of the seventh fire. So I look out there, and I want to talk first about making America great again. Can I do that for a minute? So this is my idea of when America was great, right? When there was 8,000 varieties of corn, right? Because corn doesn't exist in nature. Corn is teosinte in nature. It's like a grass. But corn is one of those beautiful things that humans do with nature. How cool is that? 8,000 varieties of corn. Now, I just want to point that out because, we was like not slacking over here in the Western Hemisphere. We were busy making all those corn varieties, right? That was like pre-Monsanto, pre-Syngenta. And who did all that? That was a lot of indigenous people, a lot of women did that. Because who collects seeds, who saves seeds, who knows how to cook it, who knows how it saves, right? That's us. It's us, all different varieties of corn. That's when America was great, when there was tremendous agrobiodiversity. America was great when there were 50 million buffalo. That's when America was great. Single largest migratory herd in the world, living on 250 different species of grass. The tremendous biodiversity of the land, when the passenger pigeons would darken the sky, and when you could drink the water from every river and every creek. That's when America was great. And I want to think about that and just keep that, because that's part of us as humans, and that's something that we know is true. I'm not someone that either has historical amnesia. I don't have it. I don't forget what happened. I know what happened. Y'all know what happened. You're conscious people. You're coherent. And I don't have ecological amnesia either. That's when you forget that there used to be wild rice there, or you forget that there used to be water there, or you forget that one time you used to fish there, or one time there was trees there. We don't want to be the people that forget everything. We want to be the people that make things right, that do our best to reaffirm our space in this world, to do our best. And then this is the problem, right? This is a little bit of the beginning of the problem, the conflict between worldviews. This is, of course, Custer and Sitting Bull, but it is manifested in different ways, and I refer to it as Wendigo economics, which is like the economics of a cannibal. That's what America has exhibited, the economics of colonialism and imperialism, where you just keep taking and taking and taking, and you don't leave something that is left. In an indigenous economy, it's called a cyclical economy. If you want to live a long time, you got to learn a few things, like don't take more than you need, put things back, be grateful, right? These are basic principles of dignity in economy and in life. And remember that the world is alive. It's not just something that can be commodified and purchased. Even in our language, Anishinaabe-Moan, our language, the word asin, the word for stone, is an animate noun. Meaning has spirit, has standing. Being conscious of this world is full of living beings, not just things that are for us, right? And then thinking about an economy as being cyclical, where you come back to the same place, having cared for it, instead of kind of scorching it and moving on. And that's a very big difference between an indigenous economy and an American economy. A linear economy and an economy based on whether it is the seasons or whether it's based on a reaffirmation of relationship to land. And I think about the linear nature, because a linear economy is not sustainable. And two examples of that are some of the issues that you address here. One example is how much junk we produce. You know, we get all this stuff in, and about 3 months later, we send it to the landfill, right? A few years ago, they said 13 trillion tons of waste, you know? And that, you know, where is away? There's no away anymore, right? China, nobody's taking our stuff, right? All that single-use plastics, all that stuff I heard they're trying to build some more plastic plants here on the river, you know? To me, it's like, where is away? Talk about like a growth economy based on garbage dumps. That's a dumbass idea. Oh, sorry, I didn't say it. But you understand what I'm saying? That's like a dumb plan, right? But that's a linear economy, to have a growth economy based on that. And what's another perfect example of a linear economy? The prison industrial complex, right? What do we have? 2.2 million people in prison, more than any other country in the world per capita? And that's a growth economy. You know, how sustainable is that? It is not. You know, what we need is to reaffirm people's dignity, reaffirm everyone's dignity, and to create a world where people have a place. You know, that's what we need, not throwaway people. What we need is a place. So this is about that moment in time, you know, and as I look at it, this is what extractive worlds look like, you know, taking more than you need and not leaving the rest, laying to waste vast tracts of land. You know, we get to the era that we're in now, which is an era of extreme extraction. And you all know about it because we all live here. You know, I've spent my whole life in the fossil fuel era. I had a pretty good time, Job, pretty good time. Come on, admit it was kind of fun. You know, drive-in movies, remember those? Maybe not the younger people, but you know, go drive everywhere, and then you order stuff from anywhere, and it's there for you, right? You know, because you can have your, you know, flowers from Colombia the same day. You understand what I'm saying? We just consume so much fossil fuels, and we're all like so addicted to this level of consumption. And at a certain point, you got to kind of like question yourself, like Fiji water. Anybody drink that stuff? Like sometimes I drink that stuff just because I want some water from the furthest part of the globe. Like 8,000 miles, you know what I'm saying? 8,000 miles to get that water over there so I can have it. Tastes really good, but that's got to be one dumb, you know, use of energy, right? That's what I'm saying. But when you get to this level of consumption and you are an addict, like we are, you do dumb stuff to fill your addiction. Now, I don't know if any of you got addicts in your family. I got a couple addicts in my family, and they're kind of a drag. They're a lot of fun until that part kicks in, and they're a drag, right? I know from firsthand experience, right? And so what do you do when you're an addict? Like you start rationalizing your behavior, right? You start like doing more crazy stuff to fill your addiction, right? And it just like gets worse and worse, and your relationship with everybody gets worse and worse. And that's pretty much us at the end of the fossil fuel era. Anything that was easy to get, we already got, right? That oil that we're squirting out over there in you know, Oklahoma or Ohio, that's gone. That stuff's gone. You know, everything that we got to get now, you got to like punish the earth to get, pretty much, right? So what do you got? Knocking off the top of 500 mountains in Appalachia, selling that coal. It's not even for this country, right? It goes to like India, right? Then you got things like busting up the bedrock of Mother Earth with fracking, shooting down all those 602 chemicals that we don't got to report on because of the Dick Cheney and the Energy Policy Act of 2005, with the assumption that what goes down will not come up, right? Right, that's just not true. That's just not true. You know, and then you got to go do like deep sea oil drilling and act like you're all smart until you do something like the Deepwater Horizon. Then you know that you weren't as smart as you thought, right? And then you got the tar sands, dirtiest oil in the world. Up there in northern Alberta, you got a country, you know, Canada. Most of my problems come from Canada, actually. By the end of this thing, you'll be with me. I want a wall to the north. So, just wait till I'm done. You'll be like, yeah, don't let that stuff come here. They're crazy up there. And they don't have a plan B, you know? We're all related, though. So this is what extraction looks like, right? This is when you're at the end and you do all this crazy stuff to get your addiction, right? You rationalize it. You say, well, the Indians will take care of it. Oh, we just need one more pipeline and then we'll transition out, right? Like, how many times have you heard this before? We'll just like do that one more war for oil, right? We're all in the same situation, you know? So this is the beginning of your fossil fuels addiction counseling. I'm going to help you out here. We're all going to move on together because no time like the present, right? So this is what it looks like when you bake your planet, right? Now this was actually Fort McMurray, but maybe it could have been California today. 200,000 people are getting evacuated, right? I mean, that is like crazy fires. This is Fort McMurray, which is in the middle of the tar sands when they caught on fire a couple years ago. And I could see that, you know, that was smoky in Minnesota. It was smoky in Minnesota. The moon, the sun was like red all day. Eerie as heck, right? This is the price, you know, of climate change related disasters. No city has a budget for that stuff, right? You know, Munich Re, the world's largest reinsuring company, was saying that by the year 2020, that'd be next year, we'd be sending 20% of world GDP on climate change related disasters. I have no idea, but I have no idea how much the California fires are costing. You know, we just know that this is like way out of control. And I'll tell you what, you want to pick a fight with Mother Earth, Mother Nature, you're not going to win. You are not going to win, right? She's got the upper hand on this one, right? So, you know, at this moment, we go crazy, and then we take it out on our people. This is 3 years ago, Standing Rock. You know, I spent 7 years fighting the Enbridge pipeline, the Enbridge company, which is the single largest pipeline company in the Western Hemisphere, 7 years. It wasn't really my choice of what I wanted to do with my 7 years, right? It's kind of like a really bad sentence to a dysfunctional relationship. I asked them for a divorce, but I didn't get one yet. But we fought them on White Earth. They announced they want to put a pipeline through our territory. And we fought them for 3 years, from 2013 to 2016. We fought them in the courts. We fought them in the regulatory process. We built a multiracial alliance of northern people who have lakeshore homes, Indian people, and people who are just damn tired of oil companies running the state. You know, we built this multiracial alliance, and in that multiracial alliance, it was against a pipeline called the Sandpiper, which was a fracked oil pipeline intended to come out of North Dakota. Finally, Friends of the Headwaters filed a lawsuit and forced the state of Minnesota to do an environmental impact statement on a 640,000 barrel a day pipeline. I think you should just not have to be forced to do one. You know what I'm saying? It's like the state should like be looking out for us and stuff, right? But sometimes you got to force them to do that. And when that happened, about 3 weeks later, Enbridge canceled that pipeline. They canceled the Sandpiper. So I want to tell you that it is possible to defeat a pipeline project. It is possible to defeat a pipeline project, right? And then I'm also going to tell you that you got to keep fighting, because what they do is they move those projects. And so what they did is they moved that project to Standing Rock. That's the same project. And so, you know, what happened is that Energy Transfer Partners, which had this kind of flimsy project proposal in North Dakota, the Dakota Access Pipeline Project, was not looking so good financially, and Enbridge, the third largest corporation in Canada, funded them, gave them 28% of their funding and a whole bunch of equity to make that pipeline project go. And so we followed Enbridge out there to North Dakota. We were out there in April, and this is photos from the fall, but this is what happens when the rights of corporations supersede the rights of people. That's what that looks like. When they bring out $38 million worth of military equipment and they start dousing your people with all kinds of violence, all kinds of equipment. There's some stuff out there called the LRAD and the MRAP, mine-resistant armored personnel carrier. LRAD, long-range acoustic device, 2 pieces of equipment surplus from the military for domestic police forces. That's something that no one in this room thinks is a good idea. You know, surplusing military equipment for civilian police forces. That's wrong. But that's what they used on us at Standing Rock. You know, and they've used it in other places too. But this is what repressing water protectors looks like, because all we were doing is protecting water. You know, that's why I always say I'm a water protector. And then this is my favorite, one of my favorite photos, which, you know, I could show you a lot more brutal photos like the dogs biting on our people and all the tanks out there, but I just like that. You know, there's a couple of, I know those guys, you know, and there's this moment in time when you just got to stand on your horse and look at the cops. That's what they're doing there, huh? I mean, don't y'all wish you could do that? Come on, let's be honest, right? I have to say, like, that's like the coolest thing. But I just want to say at that moment in time in Standing Rock, I don't know. Was that you, Joe? Was that you standing on your horse there? No. Oh, right. And then, yeah. Yeah, this is like old home week for Standing Rock out here. Yeah, but you know, that's just to say that like sometimes in the darkest moments you find this something in you, right? And we all know that. I remember that you know, as a young woman, I had a lot of privilege in my life, but I remember sitting with Matthew King, one of the Oglala chiefs, Oglala leaders from the Pine Ridge Reservation, and he said one time, he said, the only thing sadder than an Indian who isn't free is an Indian who doesn't remember what it's like to be free. Right? There's some people that remember what it's like to be free. Sometimes you got to go in and remember who the hell you are. And that's this moment in time to me. This moment where we have to figure out who the heck we are, you know, and muster up all our courage and all our beauty to be the people that the Creator intended for us to be and to transform, you know. What a great opportunity spiritually that is. That's the opportunity that I want to be in. So that's us. This is what civil society, it happens to civil society with oil companies, right? You guys are talking about trafficking. This is trafficking in North Dakota. This isn't even Native women. That billboard was taken out by white people, North Dakota, because they're so sick of trafficking into those man camps, right? This is our you know, our art. The red dress is to signify the missing and murdered indigenous women. You know, the intersection between the violence in the oil industry and the violence and excessive fossil fuels and the violence against women is high. This is a little bit about the pipeline maps. I'm not going to bore you too much with them, but this is where your fix is coming from. Canada, landlocked oil, can't get it out. 5 pipeline proposals 2 years ago. Now we're down to 2 of them got knocked out. The first one is Energy East, never happened. The furthest north one, the purple one, never happened. That was Enbridge's Northern Gateway. Enbridge lost 2 pipelines in the past 6 years. They're not too happy with us. And then you see the Keystone Pipeline, the Trans Mountain Pipeline. You hear these pipelines, any of you, the Trans Mountain? That's the one that's supposed to go to the far west. And then you see Line 3. That is the pipeline that we are fighting in Minnesota for 6 years now. No pipeline, 915,000 barrels a day of oil that would go to the Straits of Mackinac, where they got a bridge and a pipe underneath the bridge. Remember this story? The really old pipe, the 66-year-old pipe under the bridge? So we're the ones that are stopping more oil from coming. That's what we're doing. 6 years into it, 6 years into it. There's the pipelines that we're fighting. So I tell you that because, like, I'm a person who ended up fighting pipelines. This wasn't my plan. Right? But what I realized is that at the end of the fossil fuel era, they're going to do a bunch of dumb stuff, and we need to stop them because we need to move on. That's just the reality of the situation. We are baking the planet. But, you know, the way it's going to change is because of people like us. It takes a lot of things to change something. But remember, we didn't leave the Stone Age because we ran out of rocks. Right? No time like the present to move on, right? As Jane Fonda says as she gets arrested every week. Right? Y'all been watching that, right? You know, it's just there's change by disaster or change by design. What do you want, folks, right? I think it is really, it is our responsibility to be the ones that, you know, change is inevitable. It's a question of who controls the change. It is up to us to make that change. So I'm going to tell you our little story in my community. This is some of our resistance. This is in British Columbia. What the face people like you. This is what people like you. These are water protectors stopping pipelines in British Columbia. This is us in northern Minnesota. You know, a lot of people in the streets, a lot of people in the courts, and a lot of people making a change in the regulatory. This is me at the Enbridge shareholders meeting about 4 months ago, getting screamed at by a bunch of guys, saying, "Build that pipe." And I was like, I was in Calgary. And they're screaming at me, you know, and I said, you know what, guys, I didn't make your problem. You know, you got an 8%, you laid off 10,000 people in the tar sands because it was a dumb idea to start it, right? It's not my problem. You know, what you need is a transition economy, right? That's what we're for. So that's what I'm going to talk about. This is the happy part of the speech, okay? So I refer to this as the Sitting Bull Plan. That's why it's called that, the Sitting Bull Plan. And the reason I do that is because he was a great political leader of the Hunkpapa Lakota, and he said, let us put our minds together to see what kind of future we can make for our children. And that's what we got to do. There's not like one smart guy that's going to fix it. There's not like a social change fairy. Right? There's not like a nuclear waste ferry. There's not like a carbon sequestration ferry. They don't exist. What there is change that is made by the hands of people that make change, that stick to it, are persistent, and have a vision. And that's, you were talking about a place at the table, My friend Bob Goff used to say, you're either at the table or you're on the menu. So I want to be at the table. And as a fact, I want to help set the table. Because I feel like that's important, who sets the table, and it's important what you eat at the table, right? I think we ought to be done with hot Cheetos right now. I'm just saying, I see my grandchildren with them hot Cheetos. You think that's a food group or something, right? Did anybody else experience the hot Cheetos phenomena? Yes, there's some, yeah. I was like, where did that food come from? Ooh. Anyway, this is also called by AOC and other visionary leaders in Congress, the Green New Deal, right? But let me just talk a little bit about what it looks like in our community and what it looks like nationally. So people say that you can't meet present energy demand by renewable energy. Did y'all hear that? And I say, well, why would you want to do that? That'd be dumb, because if you look, this is Lawrence Livermore Labs. They're like super left-wing, aren't they? They pointed out in 2007 that we waste 57% of our energy between point of origin and point of consumption. With those aging power plants you got here, right? Everything that's like super inefficient, old, and, just moving things around, that idea of economies of scale is really not true, actually. Just ask the people in California where the 800,000 people lost out in power because the grid went down, right? Time to decentralize, consume less, get local, go solar, do cool stuff, right? Then this is the next picture. Did I go to the next picture? Right. Oh, yeah, see, it even got worse. By 2017, we were wasting, I think, 61% of our power between point of origin and point of consumption. So don't let them control the narrative. That's part of this discussion, right? They say a lot of things. They act like they're experts, and they repeat the fake news or whatever they do. They make up all kinds of stuff, but don't let them control the narrative, because it's not true. Speak our truth. Be coherent. That's what Trudeau would always say, be coherent. Somehow in this insanity, some of us got to be coherent. Got to see where we're going, what we're doing, and have that vision. It's not only about saying what's wrong, it's about saying what's right. And saying this is what we're going to do and this is how we're going to build it. Because that is the most liberating feeling of all, is when you can do it, right? So this is what we do in my little village. So I live in a place that, things aren't good. We'll go with that description. Every statistic you don't want, we got it, Indian arrests 7 times higher than non-Indians. You know how many young men I've raised? I'm the mother or the auntie of like 20 guys that are like 18, and I'm like, don't go to town, don't do it. It's like so racist in the North, right? Arrests are so much higher. Every, charges, felonies, diabetes, murders, poverty. What do I got to add? Y'all, you got the picture? That's us. It's my village. It's all messed up over there. Colonialism did a pretty good job to us. Being treated like third-class citizens hasn't helped much, really, frankly. So you look around there and you say, well, don't look good. What if we try to do something cool? Make our place cool. And so a few years ago, we started with this idea, which is 8th Fire Solar. And what we do is this is our team. We're making the solar thermal panels. We put up for about 5 years these solar thermal panels on the south side of people's houses in our low-income housing projects. And if you put these panels up, they're like 8x4, and the heat goes in them, and it's like a plexiglass, and it's like black inside, and it gets dark. It gets dark. It's dark in there, and it gets hot because of the way it's constructed. It's this really simple system, with super fancy, it's like super. It's elegant system with the right technology. But it heats up to 90 degrees. The thermostat clicks on 90 and turns on a blower fan and blows hot air into your house. Simple, kind of like low-hanging fruit in renewable energy. Y'all see what I'm saying? And you could save up to 20% of your heating bill. So what kind of smart people would do that? Like us, right? So we put up a bunch, and then this year we put up a bunch of those on our houses. We liked them, and then about 2 years ago, we purchased the technology and now are manufacturing. It's called 8th Fire Solar, manufacturing these solar thermal panels. There's us putting some up, right, on our houses in there. And we just talked to some people from CAP, Community Assistance Programs, is that what they're called nationally? And they're interested in them, for putting them on nationally. So right on my reservation, we started building those, And I was thinking about it today because I was quarreling with a guy, an oil company guy, and I said, I got 7 people making solar thermal panels, I mean, and all those guys, they were like 18, 19-year-old guys from that little village. I raised a lot of those boys, and I see them there working, and they're proud. And they're doing something good. They're doing something that reduces people's misery, right? And this is the bigger picture is that, renewable energy is everywhere, but it turns out that Indian reservations are the windiest place in the country. Go figure that one. No idea, but anyway, class 7 wind. And so all those reservations are super set up for renewable energy, and most of them have been the site of poor fossil fuel projects for generations, like the coal-fired generators on the Navajo Reservation or Northern Cheyenne or Crow Reservation, and all of those could be transformed into wind or into solar. And then there's this really revolutionary idea called solutionary rail. Have any of you heard of this? Yeah, so this is so do you remember, y'all know that some people travel by train in other countries? You're aware of this form of transportation, right? But not here, right? We have like a train system that would be an embarrassment to Bulgaria. That's what someone said, right? We have like the most backwards train system in the damn, and we're all like first world country and everything, right? But not really first world country, right? And so it turns out that you could rebuild a rail system in this country because rail is the most efficient way of moving stuff and people. Just think of the energy difference between rubber on the road or metal on metal, right? That's how you start. With it's just like way more efficient already. And then you move into differences like diesel versus electric. Now, so I got here in a bunch of gas-powered things, but like a car that most of us drive, my vehicles, like a combustion engine is about 16% efficient. Because every piece in there moves and it drains more energy off from the initial combustion. An electric engine is 65% efficient. So what will be the smarter engine for the future? Electric, right? And if you had an electric train, that's about 70% more efficient than a diesel train. Wouldn't you want to do something like that? And then what you got to do is this cool thing that they got, which is they figured out how to do distributive power. And so you could generate the power along the line and directly feed the train. So that's like 90% efficient, 95% efficient if it goes directly from the... Y'all follow me on this fabulous idea? And that's what it would look like. I'm just saying someone has to be visionary, right? These guys, the solutionary rail, are a visionary example of how if you want to restart an economy in this country, that's what you do. But you got to make it safe. People talk to me and they say, well, if you don't want pipelines, well, they're gonna move that oil by train. And they said, which is safer? I say to them what I always say, which is, do you want your heroin delivered by train or do you want it delivered by pipe? I mean, that's basically the question. At a certain point, you got to quit putting toxic stuff out there, right? And put people on trains and food and, So I'm saying is that talk about having to, hit the reset button. And then this is like our electric example, right? Don't you feel all backwards now that you see that slide? Every time I see that, I was like, oh my gosh, we are so backwards, right? Potential for all of us in the next economy. So, that's what I think about, And then I think a lot about local solar. This is an example in the middle of what's known as the tar sands. There's a village there called Little Buffalo, and this woman's name is Winona LaDuke, and she's from Little Buffalo. And her village in the middle of the tar sands, their health clinic ran on a diesel generator. So I just want to point out what injustice looks like. So you're in the middle of the tar sands. They're poisoning the heck out of you. They're stealing oil out of there, but you don't even have electricity, right? You got a diesel generator for your electricity, right? And that's like what Canada looks like. That's Canada as a snapshot. And, Native people, Indigenous people are treated so poorly in Canada. So she was in the master's program at the University of Victoria, and I got to be on her master's committee. And in her master's committee, that's what she did. She didn't write about it. She put up 20 kilowatts of solar to power her health clinic, right? Is that cool? So that's Winona LaDuke from Little Buffalo. And then this is us on White Earth. This is me. I was like, okay, I'm going to do that too. So this is 20 kilowatts of solar for our little school in our little village that's all messed up, right? My grandchildren go to that school. You know, so this is like, you know, one community, like nobody would bet on us getting it together. But what we knew and what we know still is that nobody's going to do it for us, right? And so you got to figure out how to do it yourself, how to like build your own local community in that. And this is when you scale it up. This is at Navajo Reservation. This is, you know, instead of that 400,000 acre uranium lease in Crown Point, this is a 26 megawatt solar project, you know. And then this is my the next economy of hemp. You guys all like my little, these guys over here are the hemp enthusiasts too. So I'm a hemp grower. It was very funny because I just wrote this article about it. I'm just going to say it. I'm a cannabis grower. Can I say that? I'm a cannabis grower. And, you know, I was told, like, you know, say hemp because it sounds better. I was like, no, I grow cannabis. So this is what I do. I have had a permit from the state of Minnesota for 4 years to grow hemp or cannabis. I can't grow anything with THC in it. You can't get high on anything I grow. It has to be under 0.3% THC. But what I specialize in is fiber hemp. That's what I'm interested in because I'm interested in, you know, in changing the world. And the fact is that today, you know, we live in this world where most of what we are wearing, if it's cotton, this here is cotton, right? This is about 5,000 gallons of water for a t-shirt and jeans. Huge amount of water and cotton. 24% of the world's agricultural chemicals on 4% of the world's agriculture. That would be cotton, right? And then what else are we wearing? Polyester, right? Rayon. And what's that? All fossil fuels, right? So what if we like move to a post-fossil fuels economy and we don't wear that stuff anymore, right? So this is what intrigues me about cannabis. It turns out that the word canvas comes from cannabis. Right. And this whole country, like all those sails that your ancestors came, they were all cannabis, right? Everything was cannabis. Minnesota used to have 11 hemp mills until 1938. We grew our own, we had our own clothing, and we made our own rope. How cool is that, huh? So I'm just here for the Renaissance. I'm back. We're going to do it, right? So this is what it looks like. This is our hemp field last year. That's some of my sons, some of my nephews. That's what fiber hemp looks like. On the White Earth Reservation, that's a tribal field. And then this is me in the field. I look really stoned, but I'm not. But I always put that picture up there because I really look stoned. I'm just really laughing because I got this call from the neighbor who said, complained about the noxious weeds. And then I went out there, I was like, what, the 8-foot-tall hemp plants? I guess that was your noxious, you know, like they didn't quite have it down that that's what we were growing, you know. I was like, wow, look how good we did, huh? They're super happy. The girls are super happy. It's super interesting, you know, sexing plants. You know, I don't know, a lot of talked about sex here, but, you know, you know, it's the girls that make all the medicinal plants. The CBDs are all girls, right? Y'all know that, right? They're all females. It's like really a female-based plant. And then that field is males and females. But I just harvested that field yesterday at my house. I was out there looking because I have a field this year. And I went out there and the guys, so let me just put it to you this way. It's a field full of males and females. The males have pollinated all those females and then they die. That's a lot of work, apparently, right? And then the girls are all there and they're all happy because they had all this sex. And they're like, that's all females. Isn't that interesting? So if you're making fiber hemp, you're actually looking after female plants because they were the best quality, because they all had all that happy sex and they all grew out. And the males have all like died in the field from the exhaustion of it or something. It's like super funny. I don't know, that's a little more than you probably want to know about hemp, but it was super interesting learning about that, right? I saw it myself. I was like, what is that? I was like, no, that's another boy. He's dead. He's just dead. They're like all exhausted. But anyway, there's, you know, so this is why you want to do it, because it's better than, you know, all that toilet paper everybody's talking about, just make that out of hemp or recycled paper. You know, all the fabric, materials economy, you could transform the materials economy. You know, Henry Ford made a car out of hemp, and also they could fuel a car out of hemp. You could do anything that you could do with oil, you could do with hemp. Long time ago, they say there's this Kentucky farmer, and what he said is that I heard it in this film. Patagonia did this film called Misunderstood, and he said in the 1920s, I think is what he said. He said there was a choice He just said a long time ago there was a choice between a carbohydrate economy and a hydrocarbon economy. Isn't that interesting? And the carbohydrate economy was hemp, and the hydrocarbon economy was oil. And we were pushed to make a choice to move to the hydrocarbon economy, but those words are so close. Carbohydrate and hydrocarbon, right? And so I just want to return to that economy. And this is where I get to model my hemp skirt. Now, unfortunately, this is Chinese hemp because that's the only place in the world that you can get hemp now. But I want to see an American hemp economy again. Now, that is the Green New Deal, right? That's it right there. And then this is the last couple pictures of my village. I told you how rough it is. This is from a film called The Seventh Fire they did on my community. It was this snapshot of the drug epidemic in my village. That's my village, right? So I'm hanging out and talking to all of you, and y'all think I'm all important, and that's where I live, right? It's the reality of my situation. I live on the near there, but that's my village. And so we didn't like that film, and so we decided to fix stuff up, right? And so we, who would like that picture of your village, to be immortalized like that? And so we started doing this, right? Painting up our houses to be beautiful. Take a HUD housing project and paint it, right? Nice, huh? So we got room. We did 7 of them, and we did 7 of them, but we're going to do a bunch more. This is our rice. This is what a long-lived, sustainable economy looks like. And what I know is that in the well-being of my community, there's nothing happier than an Indian person out harvesting rice. It's this moment where you know who you are. You remember that you're the people that know how to do that better than anybody else in the world, and the Creator put you right there. And so as I look at what justice looks like, it's being able to reaffirm that covenant, that spiritual justice to do the right thing. And so you do that in a lot of ways, but you got to fight to make it happen. That's why we're fighting to protect our rice from that oil company, because the Creator gave us that. And we know we can eat our rice and we cannot eat oil, There's a lot of people on a worldwide scale who have thought this same thing. Evo Morales, president of Bolivia, one of the first indigenous presidents, along with Hugo Chavez, an indigenous president as well. And under Evo Morales, the rights of Mother Earth were enshrined in their constitution. That's an evolution that is far ahead of America in terms of jurisprudence and justice. Here, the rights of corporations supersede the rights of individuals. Corporations are considered natural persons under the law, and everybody in this room knows that a corporation is not a person, because a person has a soul. A person has a soul. But yet we have institutions that enshrine the rights of corporations, and so we need to transform our laws to reflect the reality of the world that we live in. And it happens piece by piece, but country after country is looking at this, and most recently our tribe in December of last year passed the rights of wild rice as a part of our tribal constitution, saying that wild rice was a sacred being and deserved to live free of contamination, free of genetic engineering. The Yurok tribe just passed the rights of the Klamath River, and so to me that is part of this conviction that we have, because these institutions need to be transformed to be institutions like legal institutions which reaffirm the goodness of our lives, the goodness of our world. How change is made is made by the hands of individuals, but this butterflies do this really interesting thing which we know as metamorphosis, right? And in that metamorphosis, which we all studied, the butterfly does something that nobody else does, which is that the caterpillar goes in the chrysalis and it liquidates itself. It liquidates itself and comes out as a butterfly. It doesn't do things that other things do. It does this really amazing total transformation, this metamorphosis. And the cells which do that are called imago cells. The first ones come and they are killed off by the rest of the cells. Then more of them come and they are killed off again by the rest of the cells. And then finally, some of those cells come again, and those cells transform that butterfly. Now the imago cells are what does that. And imago is the same root as the word imagination. That is us. We are the imago cells of this society. We must imagine what it is that we want. We must imagine the restoration of what is beautiful in our dignity. That's who we are. You know, this spiritual opportunity to make that transformation in all the ways that it is. We do that in, you know, all of our work. You know, y'all, I thought I was supposed to talk about food, so I was going to bring all my food slides, but this is a squash. Y'all know that, right? I grew that squash. That squash is called a Gete okoseman, is what I call it. But this year they were eclipsed by this other squash variety, which is known as the Lakota squashes. I'm not sure why the Lakota squashes took over my gardens, but they totally did. So it's just like that. It was really funny. Everybody's like, "Where's the Ojibwe squash?" I was like, "I don't know. The Lakotas are here." Anyway, this squash was I was given some seeds, you know, a number of years ago, and it was like, and I was told the story that this squash came from the seed. This squash came from this archaeological dig near Green Bay, Wisconsin, where they had had this clay ball, and they shook this clay ball, and they heard something was in there, and they cracked it open, and in there was these seeds. And they carbon dated it 800 years old. Wow. You know, and so I went with that story, and people used to always ask me what this squash was called. And I was like, I don't know. I got given these seeds. I don't know what it's called. And then this guy corrected me, and he said, you know, it wasn't really, that's not the correct story. I said, okay, what was the correct story? I always like it when those white guys correct you. He said, it's really a Miami squash, probably from, you know, right around here, and it's 1,000 years old. I said, okay, good. Glad we got that straight. But my point is that it's an old dang squash, right? So people asked me what that squash was called, and I kept being asked. I was like, I don't know. So I said, then one day I said to myself, well, I'm gonna name that squash. Because, you know, white guys name stuff all the time. Did you ever notice that? Oh my God, got to name everything. Got to name a mountain, got to name a creek, got to name it after their brother, whatever. Got to name a star, got to name this, that, you know. I don't know why they're so busy naming stuff. But anyway, so I was like, oh, I'm going to name that squash. So I call this squash Gete okoseman. Gete okoseman, which means really cool old squash. But I had these kids come, they came up from this really great Jewish school in LA, and they came up and they were really interested in everything we were doing, and we ate one of those squash, and they said, we want to count how many seeds are in here. They said 1,600 seeds in a squash. Now, if that is not about possibility, I don't know what is. You know what I'm saying? Is like that squash really want to go on, right? But I'm telling you that because that is life. Life wants to go on. Life wants to live. Find one way to do it. You got to figure out how to make it happen. And in that, you know, in that moment, you know, you see this incredible responsibility and opportunity. And I know that sometimes it doesn't happen right away. Like in our territory, there's some lakes that they drowned the wild rice out of. They drowned those lakes. They drowned them for big boats, right? They drowned them for lakeshore cabins. They drowned out our rice. One of those lakes, Onamia Lake, another like Ogeechee Lake. One lake didn't have rice for 17 years, another one 50 years. And then a drought came, and what came back? The rice. 17 years later or 50 years later. Talk about resilience. Talk about, I want to live. So, you know, think of that. And there's your quote. That's what you were saying earlier, huh? You know, be those seeds. Be those seeds that are beautiful and make that beautiful world, because we got that. We got life. You know, remember that we have that. Remember that we have courage. Mi'kmaq woman in what's known as New Brunswick in Canada. That looks like that could be El Salvador, right? That's a woman with the eagle feather in front of all those troops, and those guys are trying to frack. And you know what? Those people stood them off. They stopped that project. First it was a few Indian women, and then it was the churches. And then it was the citizens and the farmers. They didn't end up getting to frack that community. You know? So that is how we change things. We put our hearts and our minds and our courage on the line. And we do that. You can come to Minnesota this summer if it doesn't go well for us. 7 years fighting hemorrhage, did I tell you that? We're in the legal proceedings right now. If they issue those permits, you're welcome to come camp in Minnesota with us. Camping is good. You know, 10,000 lakes. That proposed pipeline would go through Itasca Park, headwaters of the Mississippi. You know, so we invite you to join us as water protectors. Enjoy it and be like the rest of us. You know, we are all here for this water, because without water there is no life. And remember that this is our opportunity to make that change and be those courageous people. I want to thank you for your time and wish you all the best in your year ahead. Thank you.
Hi everyone, we're going to open it up for some Q&A for about 20 minutes. There are microphones in both of the side aisles, so if you're able to get up to one of the microphones to ask a question, we invite you to come up. If you can't get to one of the microphones, please raise your hand and we'll have a handheld one going around if you need that. So we'll have about 20 minutes.
All right, I can't, where did you say they were? The people? There are people everywhere, I see that. Yeah, I think they're trying to figure out. Thank you all for coming tonight, for those of you who are heading out. Continue to be awesome. Did y'all hear that? You know, who is that actress who got an Emmy and she was talking about her grandmother was in the Auschwitz concentration camp? That Maisie, that's her name, right? Huh? Marvelous Miss Maisel? Right, so when she got her award, she talked about this moment where her grandmother or her great-grandmother was in line to be shot at Auschwitz, right? And she said to the guard, she turned to the guard and said, "What happens if I step out of line?" And he said, "I don't know if I got the heart to shoot you, but somebody will." And so she stepped out of line. And that's why that woman was here. So that's what I think. Time to step out of line. Right? Yeah.
I'm Margaret. Is this working? Can you hear me? It's not on. Okay. Oh, Margaret, thank you so much. I also want to thank you for your coining of the term of radioactive colonialism or nuclear colonialism with Ward Churchill. And it's an area that I'm working with and with the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation in Ontario, which is the largest nuclear hotspot in the world and the largest nuclear power plant in the world on Lake Huron. And of course, one of the problematics, I mean, it's a fairly long story, but one bright spot is that they were able, because of rules around prior consent, have been given the right to have a referendum whether there will be a nuclear waste dump or two there of high level and low, so-called low and intermediate level waste, right on the shores of Lake Huron, affecting possibly 40 million people on their water. It's the Bruce, yeah. So anyway, the referendum will be coming up in November or December, and of course we don't know if that will be actually honored by the Ontario Power Generation or Bruce Power, or for that matter, the federal government. But I think part of the problem, of course, is the ways in which nuclear is being fashioned as being the alternative to fossil fuel. And so as a result, there's been a lot of focus on oil and pipelines, and that we may be facing far more increase in nuclear options, and with no solutions for nuclear waste except on indigenous land, or anybody's land. So I'm just wondering if you, because of your past work on nuclear, I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit about how do we resist the so-called alternative nuclear in a post-fossil fuel context.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you for your question. First, I never think of it as alternative energy. I think of it as enlightened energy. You know what I'm saying? Because alternative, at some level, it marginalizes it. It acts like nuclear power is normal, and fossil fuels are normal, and they're really aberrations of, a set of really bad decisions. And I did spend a lot of time fighting nuclear power, and I still do, oppose it, because it's a hell of a dumb way to boil water, right? I mean, that's what we're doing. We're boiling water, so of all the ways to boil water, that's really extreme behavior, right? And nuclear power, they haven't had a lot of success in the Renaissance and the restart, of most of these facilities, and I think that that'll continue to be the case. The main interest, the way that I look at it is, one is you got to close those guys down and decommission, and that's a really big mess. And I raise a lot of kids, and I always say you got to clean up your old mess before you make a new mess. But we don't say that with the nuclear industry or the oil. We don't say that with any of those corporations, do we? Like, y'all just keep making a mess, and one day it'll all be okay, right? It won't. It's like the most ridiculous scenario of public policy. If they just listened to their mothers, they would have public policy which made sense. But this isn't. This makes no sense. And so, I continue to work opposing uranium mining, and they still have uranium mining in Nebraska next to the Pine Ridge Reservation, the Crawford facility. So we just keep pushing against these facilities on a case by case, but keep pushing for the next economy. That's really the solution. The only solution is to kind of like move into a world where we have a lot more decentralized energy and a lot more efficiency. If we waste so much power, there's really, in Canada, I always laugh at Canada. You always heard me, I just started ragging on them. Give me like another half hour, I will but my point is that that's so Canadian. The only people who consume more per capita energy in the world than Americans are Canadians, right? And that's because they're big and it's cold, right? Yeah, and they just like keep going, and so they have like really one set of, they continue to operate in the colonial economy, and so I wish you the best in that battle there. I have been up there. I've seen some of the lay of the land of that beautiful, beautiful Anishinaabe territory. The most beautiful lake waters. Cape Croker. Come on, you can't see a more beautiful lake than that in that moment, and you're just like, that's So what we do is we keep doing our best and resist them. And my experience with fighting mega projects, I spent a life, frankly, fighting stupid ideas. There's many of them. And that there was supposed to be, under the Nixon administration, they wanted 1,000 nuclear power plants in the United States by the year 2000. And they didn't get 1,000 nuclear power plants because people like you and me, right? We went to every nuclear power plant and protested, right? That's what I was asking you, Bryce. I was like, yeah, I was there. What I'm saying is, like, I feel like we've all been there, and that's why they didn't get these things. So they closed them down. Long Island Lighting Company, Indian, all these ones. And there's places like Seabrook where there was like 2 units and only one of them, and then they're rusted. There's like so many rusted vessels for nuclear power plants. There's one up in Olympia, Washington. I really liked that one. It was Washington Public Power Supply. Whoops. Remember that one? Whoops, power plants. They all went bankrupt, right? Whoops. I was like, talk about bad acronyms for your nuclear system, right? And then they had this, like one time I was driving by there and you could see the dome that was left from the power plant that never happened. And they were trying to debate what to do with it. It was like shopping mall or prison. I was like, what I'm saying is, like, I think they just need to, like my friend Ralph Nader, he has a museum of tort. So, that's what you need, is like a museum of stupid inventions to house it in a cask of a nuclear power plant. You could have the Dalcon shield in there. You could have the Ford Pinto. You could have like Roundup. You could have all the dumb ideas, right? A museum to stupidity. But but basically what I was going to say is that in fighting bad projects, they never say we're sorry. You just fight them until they don't have the money. And that's what we're looking at with Enbridge. The fact is that Enbridge is one big company, but their share value looks like the back of Kilimanjaro. Keep fighting them. And they never say we're sorry when the project doesn't happen. It usually doesn't happen because of money and political pressure. That's how projects are stopped. Enough people turn out, and enough, and investors starting to get nervous about it because it keeps costing more and more and more and more. And then at a certain point, they start pulling out. That's where the churches have been really good on divestment. That's what happens. And then they don't say that, I remember one project, they don't say that they're sorry. They say it's been deemed to be economically infeasible, right? And then they're done, So, that's good. That's a bitter struggle up there. And we just got to keep strong, on all of it. Thanks for your question, though. Other questions? You guys are like all shy. You are not shy. No, they're just like, she's going to keep talking until I get.
Hello? So I want to just say your actions, your matter-of-fact wisdom is inspiring. And I'm very grateful for that. I think all of us are. We saw a movie of you at a recent Potluck for Peace, and it reminded me a little bit of Greta Thunberg, what she did coming across the ocean and the solar-powered or the boat. And yours was taking these horses. You rode the horses to the Capitol, I believe. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I thought it was inspiring.
Thank you. Yeah. I don't know if I'm suited for cars. I had a couple of crashes recently. These guys are laughing because I was lamenting I'm better on a horse. That's it. I have horses. And so I kept dreaming about these pipelines and coming, and then I dreamed that we should ride against the current of the Whale. So for 7 years, I've been riding that Enbridge pipeline. And this year was the most remarkable year ever. It was really interesting for me because I rode with about 15 kids. That's kind of cool, huh? We rode, and they were so proud. And then we took those horses and we went into the schools and we went to the Boys and Girls Club, and people cried when they got to be on a horse. It was so magical, right? But, sometimes your spiritual practice, like to be what I know is that the horse nation is a sacred horse nation, is a sacred being. And and so I know what it does for me, and I know what it does for a lot of people that have a heartache, is to be with a horse, because it's such a magical being, And so I see kids transformed in finding something about who they are by being on a horse. But I'm also interested in horses as part of a post-petroleum economy. I am not the best horse farmer, but I do farm with horses, and I'm upping the bar on that one. It's interesting to think about scale and farming. I was at dinner with some really nice people tonight, and I was talking about that a couple of weeks ago. I had Wendell Berry and I had a conversation in Kentucky about, many things that he and I might look at. We're both rural people. We look at the world similarly but different, But one of the questions I had to him is like this intersection between when you lose the spirit of agriculture. I don't really know how else to describe it, but, say I garden and I farm and then I work with my horses. And I told you that about the hemp plants, right? So I wrote a little essay about the hemp plants because, people want to make a lot of money and grow hemp, but they treat the plant like a slave. And it's not going to change the world. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. And a lot of hemp farmers, people dug up their whole fields in Kentucky to plant hemp. And there was not a market for it, Because if you want to make $1 million, this is, people want to make a bunch of money. And at a certain point, in agriculture, it was someplace where you're making a living or you're making a killing. And we want to be the people that make a living. And we want to figure out how to reaffirm our relationship with those relatives that have roots so that we don't cover them with, carpet bomb them with Monsanto, right? And so someplace in that intersection, there's this simplicity of production. So I'm a proponent of smaller scale everything. I think you got to scale the stuff back. You got to have renewable energy that's at your house and in your solar farms that's locally. You got to cut your energy consumption, and you got to take the fossil fuels out of your food system. Because right now we're slathering it with fossil fuels and things that end with side and transforming it 1,400 miles from farmer to table with a lot more fossil fuels, right? And so that the key is to kind of start deconstructing that and relocalizing your food. And at a certain point, you can begin changing your technologies. And so, some people will, use a tractor, and you should use a tractor that uses less energy. But there's some relationship that, this is the spiritual conversation I was having with Wendell, which is like, at what point are you so separate from your field, when you're the remote control on your tractor pushing a button, right? And it looks like a war machine. Or you're in your field and you can hear it. That's me in the field. And I'm there with my horses. And it's energy and it's life. But at some level, what I'm sure of is that I feel real alive when I'm there. And I'm not sure that you feel really alive if you're on that tractor. And so it's a more complex answer than I realize, but to me, it's part of my restoration of place, because I certainly don't have the energy. I don't have the energy of a horse, And those creatures could plow a field pretty good. So I live my farm is on in Osage, Minnesota. It's just north of the Amish, which is really funny because the Amish community has moved in just south of my reservation. And so we're always going over there. I call it, what do I call it? Technology surveillance. See what the Amish are doing today. See, but yeah, we are not running neck and neck with the Amish yet. Let me show you. I have a sister who's like 6'2", really terrifying. You probably remember her from Standing Rock, Lorna. I always told her she should go and just scoop up an Amish husband. Bring him home to the farm for a little while. Anyway, that hasn't happened, and she isn't on that team, so she won't be stealing it. She's more like steal an Amish wife. I was like, who's going to run the horses then? So anyway, that's something that we could learn a lot from them, I think. And I don't want to be super romanticizing about it, because farming is really hard work. But what I want to say is that we got to this point where we're all addicted to being lazy. We don't even, work. Most of us don't physically work anymore. And people go to the gym. You understand what I'm saying? How absurd that energy equation is. And then you go there and they got all this electric equipment to run. I was like, well, why don't they just run the electricity off the treadmill of that treadmill that you're on, right? So.
I don't hear it's on.
There.
Okay. Thank you. I am struggling with issues in Minnesota as well. Gold exploration has come next to our cabin, and I've joined forces with folks who are working on polymet and twin metals and so on. And I appreciate very much your words, because I need to go talk with the commissioner of DNR. But I wondered if you might talk a little bit about the spiritual side of that particular struggle with metals. So I have something more to hang on to as I go forward.
Yeah, I don't know that you need a lot more to hang on to. You got it. We all know that they're at the bottom of the barrel for that stuff, right? The polymet is 1% ore, less than 1% ore. And so that's what the bottom of the barrel is, right? When you do extreme stuff to get those last little specks out, right? And you need to be a water protector. Because that's what it is in Minnesota. It's all water. Half of our world is water in the north. And those metals don't go there. Take heart. The longer you fight a project, the less likely it is to happen. And I talk only about Enbridge, but you can be sure. I'm fighting 300 miles of pipe that they have not built. We have camps prepared on the line. But, we're prepared to defend that, because there's nobody in Minnesota that really wants that line, right? But you know what? I look at that polymet, and I was like, there's only one road in and one road out, huh? You understand what I'm saying? We need to stop it in the regulatory process, because Minnesota needs to evolve. And so let us all work together, in making that happen, and articulating to Tim Walz that the real jobs are in the next economy, not in this extreme extraction economy. We're done. And so we just all need to work together in the north to keep that, and you and I know the perfect storm that has been created, that is, that there's a rise with Trump of hatred, there's this economic desperation, there's this, given clearance to act worse. The deep north is in northern Minnesota. To answer your question, I just rode through the north and got scolded by county commissioners for riding with those kids. Scolded and said, you should be ashamed of yourself, Winona. And so I just wrote it all down. They wrote letters to the editor, and I took notes. I said, at no point should we be scolded? We're water protectors. So stand tall, be a water protector, and come find us. We'll go, because every one of them dumb ideas, we keep fighting them off. But Minnesota has a good reputation for that, but take a little heart, like Wisconsin's my favorite state for badass fighters. In 2003, the World Mining Journal voted Wisconsin the worst place in the world to try to put a mine in. I was like, way to go, home team. That's what we gotta do. Just keep fighting them and make it like economically unacceptable or whatever. Yeah, question.
Hi. Well, thank you so much. I'm really grateful to be listening to you tonight. My name's Natalie, and I'm 22, so I'm in that chrysalis stage. I'm in that cocoon. It's kind of ugly inside, and I'm going through a lot of questions and soul searching and meeting really wonderful people. But at that same time, I'm having to look back on the people who raised me and the people who I've known my whole life, and they're we all are, but they're the addicts of the fossil fuel industry, and they're the people who maybe they weren't taught to think and live intentionally, and so my mom especially, I'm living at home and we're going at it, and I was wondering if we're going to move forward and transition together. I'm having a really hard time relating to these people, and I feel like I'm casting shame upon them and myself because I just can't relate anymore. And my mom wants to talk about makeup, and I'm just I don't care about that. I'm fighting for I want it to deal with bigger things, and I can't talk Netflix anymore. And I'm starting to feel isolated myself because I can't relate. So do you have any advice for moving forward with all of us being addicts together, Yeah,
As your fossil fuel counselor here?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, mother-daughter relationships are complicated. We could all say that, right, ladies? My mother's an artist. Her name is Betty LaDuke. She's an amazing artist, world-renowned, but still mother-daughter related. I still go home and she still wants me to clean my room. I'm just visiting. She's like, I got some people coming over to get some art. I was like, Mom, I'm 60 years old. I try to keep it together, but, she's 86, so whatever she says, she's the boss, right? So I don't live with my mother, though.
I know.
That sometimes eases stuff up. I do have one daughter that lives with me, and we do go out at some, but my sons, fortunately, are all out there. What I would say is that, there's different strategies. Sometimes, there's a lot of crazy around us, and And on one hand, one strategy is just do really cool stuff, and then pretty soon they'll want to do it too. Like go to the farmer's market, go eat, have a slow food, or like an all local organic meal. Like just kind of start infusing coolness. Right? You understand what I'm saying? This is kind of like that the idea, because you're beautiful and you got the right idea, and she come from a different place, and she's afraid to let that go. And so we need to show people that it's okay to let go. That you can start doing these things, and you're going to be even cooler, and you're going to feel better when you do this. And so that kind of that's how I approach it generally. And sometimes I pull my hair out and because I live with, I got all these 20-year-olds and 18-year-olds that I'm like, water protectors recycle. It's challenging, right? It's like parenting. I'm like parenting, I'm not kidding you, 15 kids right now. I'm like, water protectors recycle. So, and then they see me, and we do okay, and then they see me kind of get stressed out, and they're like, oh, okay. So keep working on that, and then go be with the cool people. Yeah. Go find your people.
I came with them tonight.
Right.
So.
Be with the cool people, and there are more and more of them. And you guys it sounds like you should come visit us in Minnesota. It's very cool up there.
Thank you, Winona.
Yeah, thank you for your question. Yeah, thank you. Good. Thank you all for having me.
Thank you, Winona, so much, so very much. She will be here for a few moments after the event if you want to say hello or didn't have a chance to ask your question. If she inspired you tonight to plant a seed on your own or to grow a movement, we'd like to invite you to pick up a packet of seeds or squirrel away some acorns so that many of us I know don't have room for a new oak tree immediately, but if you do, there are instructions for encouraging an acorn into a tree. And even if you don't, we hope you'll put one in your pocket on your way out so that when you hold on to it, you can be reminded of the need to start small, but start somewhere and continue to know and take action to address the injustices in our community. I hope that you'll note also the upcoming events that IJPC is hosting in your program book and that we will see you again soon. I'd again like to thank our event sponsors for their support making this possible, and also many thanks to our event committee, Antoinette, Richard, Jeff, Linda, Kay, and Haley. Thank you. Many hours of planning to make tonight possible. Thank you to all of our volunteers for your help tonight, and thank all of you for coming and staying until the end. Have a wonderful evening.